In Death is not a new game. Originally introduced by Solfar Studios around 2017, it's one that I'd played a bit in early access, and while the game was still relatively unfinished at the time, it showed a lot of potential. Since those first few runs, it's gathered dust on my virtual shelf for the past few years, but perchance I noticed it on my list and out of curiosity jumped back in to see what's changed. It turns out, a lot. So what is In Death? In Death is primarily a VR bow shooter with roguelike elements. It is set in an alternate afterlife, long abandoned by its rulers and left to ruin, now only occupied by the corrupted remnants of its former inhabitants. It's often described as a Dark Souls-like shooter, and while the comparison is often abused, I'd be hard-pressed to disagree. You play as a bow or crossbow-wielding hero of uncertain origin whose mission it is to cleanse and destroy each and every one of these malevolent monstrosities in order to return harmony to the afterlife. Now, here is where I have to pause and question the premise, and granted I haven't yet committed the thousands of hours of playtime as those in the leaderboards have, but I've yet to see any two of these enemies attack each other. They don't seem to be doing much but standing around practicing their idle animations and probably just chatting with each other. And since they only actually seem to fight as one against me, how am I supposed to be restoring harmony to them? I mean, they all seem to be getting along just fine without my interference, and granted there are probably a few orphans here and there that require rescuing, but on the whole, things seemed pretty idyllic until I arrived. I mean, I can just hear them. Say, who is that winged person with the bow teleporting towards us? I don't know. Maybe he'd like to join our literary discussion. Oh, let's invite him. Welcome, friend. However, I digress. In your role as hero/persistent menace, you begin each run in Sanctuary, a small, possibly cloud, possibly snow-covered floating island where you can select a base weapon to bring, check all of the features and upgrades you've unlocked, then demoralize yourself with a glance at the leaderboards. In front of you will typically be a bridge leading to the level. Now, the level layouts and enemy placements are randomized each run, providing a genuine sense of exploration each time. And this is very well done. Similarly, the feel of the bows, the layered movement mechanics, the difficulty balance, the tension, and the animations are also seriously top-notch. Upon entering the level, it's often a solid tactic to stick to the rooftops. Become a seraphic Carl Fairburn, and thin the herds around each cluster's perimeter before diving in for loot and clearing the hallways. As with most ranged titles, it's best to keep distance between you and your targets. If they decide to return fire with arrows or axes, summon a shield into existence, block it, and continue the fight. Occasionally downed enemies will drop health potions or themed arrows, and the themed arrows are limited in number but have powerful effects such as fire-based damage over time or area of effect poison or explosions. And as you procure more kills with these arrows, further enhanced versions will be unlocked for subsequent runs. And between the 3 clusters of buildings that define each level, you will find a tower floating to the side. By entering its light beam, you will be teleported to the Reliquary, the level's shop, where you can spend collected gold on cures and equipment. Per standard roguelike rules, these upgrades are lost on death, and are limited to only those items you've unlocked. The primary movement mechanics are your teleport arrow, which will teleport you to wherever it lands, and your shard, thrown from your right hand, that allows for quick dodges and short hops. Overlaid on top of that, you can enable more traditional motion controls. At the end of the level, you'll take on Anakim, a giant lumbering boss that you'll have to whittle down before killing. Once defeated, you return to the start, keeping your equipment and attacking a harder, newly randomized level, and so on. Once your life ends, the gold you earned and the achievements you've accomplished are tallied up. Based on the achievements, you might enable new or enhanced drops, increase stats, or allowing the spawning of more powerful enemies. Therein lies the metagame. But that's not all. There are side dungeons called pits available through red portals where alternate higher tiered enemies spawn, providing extra challenge and greater reward as well as another boss fight. Now, I spent some time earlier this week writing a script discussing the underlying challenge, motivation, and reward structure of roguelikes. And the question I sought an answer for was, what really makes someone want to take on the same challenge over and over again, starting from scratch, repeatedly like a Sisyphus with less muscle tone and prison pallor? The theory I propose is pretty dull, which is why I haven't recorded it, but one important facet of it is that the moment-to-moment obstacles must provide challenge with commensurate satisfaction or reward for succeeding. Fortunately, In-Death does just that. If you enjoyed the bow shooting features in the lab or Hollow Point, you'll find these even more endearing. The enemies are legitimately fun to kill, the game design itself just works, the upgrades, the progression and balance make the challenge feel fair but never frustrating. Shoot from sniper positions, peek your head around corners, block melee and ranged attacks with your shield, and with persistence you'll make some headway. But it's going to be a long time before I make it to the top of the leaderboard. Judging by the fanaticism of the player base, with hundreds upon hundreds of hours of playtime to their credit and glowing reviews, I suspect I'll succumb to the just once more urge more than a few times myself. It's good to be back in purgatory. In-Death was developed by Solfar Studios, the team behind the underappreciated Everest VR, and is currently available on the Steam, Oculus, and PlayStation stores for around $29.99. So that's our review of In-Death. If you've played it, what was your experience? Please leave a comment below and let us know. Also, feel free to add any questions or suggestions. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it and subscribing. It would be greatly appreciated and really helps a lot. Thanks for watching.